Let me jump to this next story. We'll keep the conversation going. Donald Trump warns terrible things are about to happen to the U.S. This to me actually is more serious than I think a lot of people probably realize on the surface. The former president said that the temperature, because the temperature has to be brought down in this country, he's offering any assistance to the DOJ to try and calm things down. He says if it isn't, terrible things are going to happen. I think Donald Trump realizes when you see the story from Axios about a guy threatening FBI agents, about a guy going to an FBI field office, about, just the fact that they're going after a president. It's not so much that Trump realizes he's in trouble, that they're coming after him, but people are ready to snap in this country. And the left has long been ready to snap. They've been snapping for a while. And now the right's ready to go out. When Trump says something like this creates in my mind an image of Trump sitting down at a desk, like dead serious, more serious than he's ever been, being like, this is bad. This is real bad. And I think when Trump notices it, it's probably worse than we even realize. I have to wonder what his Secret Service detail is telling him or the things that he might be seeing. And I think the left's view of this is probably like, Trump's trying to save his own skin, right?
Yes, he's saying look, hey, there's a big problem coming for us, when what he means is for me. And then people have a tendency to externalize their own fears when they're really in trouble. Like,
I don't think that's what it is. I mean, I think he's talking about food shortages. I think he's talking about inflation, that it's all going to get worse, that tensions are high now, but it's going to get much worse. And I think that part of it's going to be, Biden's already announced, we're probably looking at some food shortages. He did that months ago. I mean, it's going to get bad. And then when you start having bread lines in America, you see, I see news reports where all the food banks are now have, 40-50% increase in how many people are lining up for food. I mean, if that starts happening, then you're going to see violence.
Do you think that is the richest country that Earth's ever seen? Have you given up? Have you given up? Do you feel like it's inevitably going to fall apart and then just?
I think that there are forces within our government that are making it happen, that want it to happen. They are trying to force a civil war. If you accept the premise, like I do, that the left is literally trying to destroy this country. They hate it. They hate the Constitution. They hate the country as founded. They've been teaching our children for decades in school that this is a racist, evil country. If you accept the premise that they want to destroy it, what's the quickest way to do that? The quickest way is a civil war.
And not only that, the one way to get rid of a constitution.
Yeah.
So you can destroy a civil war by you can destroy a country by eroding it. The problem is when you have a constitution, they struggle. 100 years on, they've been trying to get rid of the Second Amendment, and boy, it's just not really working out all that well because there's new advancements, new technologies. They keep kind of passing. They have to keep trying to pass new bills. There's active resistance. If there was no constitution, they'd have banned guns. 1850s, right, 1860, right in the Civil War. So okay, nobody can have guns but us because we're but they can't. There's one way to get rid of it, and that's having a civil war. So I have to wonder if it's China. As many people speculate, China's influence in this one. And recently on a Russian state TV program, the hosts were talking about a civil war is likely coming to the U.S. because the FBI raided Donald Trump. And one of the hosts said, the only question is, which side do we support with weapons? And I think that exemplifies the world. During the American Revolution, France came in with troops and funding because they knew it was basically help for them in their fight with Britain, and they knew it was going to be bad for their enemies. During the Civil War, the American Civil War, there was funding coming from external countries to the North and South because there was a bet on who was going to win, and your investments were riding on it.
The CIA's funding regime changes has been doing it for decades. I cannot imagine that the other countries are not, that their versions of CIA are not doing that in the United States. In fact, I would guess that they are essentially attempting to create coups within the United States. Probably have been for decades. Yuri Bezmenov talks about like this slow, change of culture is the way to get a country to change, so you don't have to blow anything up. I don't know if it's a CCP. I can't blame China because they're under occupation by the CCP right now.
Except for Taiwan.
Except for the Republic. The Republic stands in Taiwan at the moment.
It would be really cool if 50 years we're looking back and like the Republic of China took back over. CCP collapses.
That's the path that we're on.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think Taiwan is eventually going to regain control?
I think the
West
people
Taiwan?
of China will revolt. They tried in '91, but the CCP mowed down people in Tiananmen Square. I probably will get people responding to me like, Ian, you've got the history all wrong, because I am looking at it through an American lens of media. But I remember seeing the tank driving down the street, the guy waving his hands to be like, hey, I'm a Chinese man. I'm sovereign. You don't live here. You don't control me. And the tanks just like tried to go around him. Then they ran him off.
I thought he was
think
just
they
holding
killed
the
that guy.
bags. I thought he was just holding bags.
Yeah. And then he
grocery
was like
store.
waving something around, like a suitcase or bags or something like that.
Yep.
So you said that you think it's in the government, like working for the U.S. government, that people have been co-opted by external governance.
Enemies, foreign and domestic.
Why do you think that?
Well, I think that our government has been corrupted, especially the Biden family. I mean, you look at all the money that's come out of China to the Biden family, it's come out of Ukraine to the Biden family. I mean, there's serious payoffs there, and they're not the only ones. I mean, a lot of foreign money has flown, has gone to the Clinton family, to even the Romney family. I mean, there's a lot of corruption here, and a lot of people are protecting their financial interests and are selling out the United States. And you have that combination of as Yuri Bezmenov, what's his name? Bezmenov, whatever. The long march through the institutions. They've corrupted our educational system so that you have generation after generation increasingly hating this country, increasingly feeling like, oh, capitalism is really the problem. And so it's a combination of all those things. It's not just a foreign enemy, and it's not just domestic enemies. It's a combination of everything.
Have you seen that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yeah.
I really, really liked it. But
Yeah.
it kind of feels like, in a sense, the multiverse is collapsing on us right now. Maybe the Large Hadron Collider needs to stop firing up or something. But you've got 1984, Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451. You got V for Vendetta. You got Atlas Shrugged. Just you name it. And they are all getting mashed together all at once. Mm-hmm. People are commenting right now like, there's not going to be a civil war. It's World War III. And I'm like, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
It's just like all happening.
I find it hard not to think about Sri Lanka right now because they just had insane inflation. And then their president was like, no, I'll step down after people stormed his home and office. And then he got on a plane and still hadn't resigned and left the country, got denied entry to Singapore, and just kept going on. You know, when you line it up, it's like we also have high inflation, and we also have a former president that looks like he's about to be indicted. I mean, the instability is so parallel to countries that I don't think Americans are used to comparing themselves to, as haughty as that sounds.
You're saying Sri Lanka's like the dry run?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard not to be like you. I mean, you were just saying like, well, Trump has a plane he could leave on, like
his name on it.
It's right there. I mean, the Sri Lankan president, because he was president at the time, took a military plane, and because he can't be indicted or anything while he's a sitting president, left with it. Like, it sounds crazy. This is while people were storming his office, his house, people were occupying the prime minister's house. Like, it sounds crazy, but at the same time, you know, that kind of stress and chaos that high inflation brings, we are also feeling it in America. It's just on a micro level in comparison. It doesn't mean that things can't get out of hand in the same way. And we're just not used to being compared to countries that we think we are more stable than.
It's that belief that it can't happen here.
It can't happen here.
Yeah.
We think this all the time.
Even though it literally is
happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. I mean, it's fascinating to look at the circumstances in Portland. The various circumstances. I mean, the firebombing of the federal building, but worse still is when Aaron Danielson got shot twice in the chest by that BLM guy. So, I mean, the feds went after that dude and claimed he went for a gun. They ended up killing him. I'm like, that's kind of a crazy story. But you take all the street level violence and then you add in the big hits. The former president had his home raided by the FBI. His former senior advisor, I believe, Bannon what was Bannon's position?
He's an advisor to the president.
Senior advisor, something like that.
Yeah.
Arrested, being charged. Peter Navarro, shackled. These things are, I mentioned this last week, but I'm curious your thoughts, Nick. When we talk to people, or when I read history about some of these other countries where civil war happened or revolution happened, there's like always mass killings and conflict, and they always interview somebody who left, and Nazi Germany always being the easiest example for everybody. A Jewish family leaves right before the Nazis rise to power, and why? And they say something like, we saw them dehumanizing and demonizing and thought we better get out of here before it's too late. Then you had many, even Kristallnacht. The mass destruction of these Jewish businesses. People still stayed, despite everything, but people still fled. When I see stuff like the former president being raided, when I see the FBI saying that symbols of American history are extremism, the Betsy Ross flag, the Gonzalez flag, the Gadsden flag, they're telling you your own history is extremism. Like, these are all signs that in any other country, at any other point in history, families were already fleeing, seeking safety in other countries. It's happening now here.
I have a friend who told me a story about talking to his niece about what she learns in school, and he said she'd never heard of the U.S. Constitution. She didn't even know what it was. He said, "Don't you say the Pledge of Allegiance at school anymore?" And she said, "No, we say a pledge to BLM and Antifa. We say a pledge to diversity and tolerance, inclusion." And they don't say anything about the actual Constitution of the United States and how this country was founded.
Is this a private school in California? What is this?
It's a school in California.
Is it a public school?
I'm not sure about that.
I got to get this pledge. I want a transcript of this.
I know.
Pledge.
I've heard of this too. I want to get a.
This is the most wild pledge I've ever heard of.
No, there's been tons of stories. I think Libs of TikTok had the story where the teacher was like, "We have them all pledged to the LGBT flag or whatever."
Wasn't it? It was Buttigieg's husband,
yeah,
who had a camp where they did that.
That's
where
right.
they had,
wow.
Yeah.
Good point.
So you could probably find a video of it. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.